Okay, Chodesh Tov. This is ER. We're in Rosh Chodesh ER, number 1 ER, and ER stands for Ani Hashem Rofecha. And what does Adar stand for? Aleph Daled Reish is also Ani Hashem Rofecha. And this is significant because the theme of Refuat HaNefesh is really a theme that takes us all the way through from Purim, through Pesach, and all the way till Shavuot. Now, this past Shabbos, I had a number of boys who were in Chutz La'aretz for Pesach approach me about a dilemma that they had. Their dilemma was that they missed Parshas Shmini. And now we were learning Tazria Metzora, and they didn't want to be left behind. No Jew shall be left behind. So they asked me if they could use my Sefer Torah in my home and create a minyan to make it up. So I thought that that was siman, that what we have to do today is link both all the way through from Shmini through Tazria Metzora, thematically. Okay, so we have an ambitious journey. Welcome those who are new to the class. My name is Rabbi Yaacov Schwartz, originally from Manhattan and Five Towns area, where I was a Rav, and we've been here for 6 years. We're coming up on our 6th anniversary of Aliyah, and we're very happy to be here and participate in the community in any way that we can, and very grateful to the group for hosting us. Okay, so let's begin. The question is this. We had in this past week's Parsha 7 unique Parshios, 7 different types of Metzora. Each one has its own unique section and its own unique laws. And the question is, how can we look at this very difficult to comprehend section of the Torah and see it from a perspective that's relevant to us and in our Avodat Hashem? So the title of the Shiur is Not Only Skin Deep. So we're going to take a look at Negoim, these Negoim, from the perspective of Chazal, as indicating what we need to do to grow as Ovdei Hashem and mitzvos that are incumbent upon us. So first, let's begin with a very simple concept. We know that the word for tzaras is also a 3-letter word, which is known as nega, right? If you turn the letters around, what does it spell? Oneg. Now that would seem to be strange, because we know that in Hebrew language, as opposed to other languages, truth is always evident. The words are what they are. Words are not to conceal the truth, as they are in many languages, but they are the truth. So if oneg and nega are therefore related in the sense that they are a scramble of the same 3 letters, then there must be a very deep connection between the two. And they seem to be very opposite. What is a nega, literally? What is the word, just in Hebrew, the Hebrew, what does the word naga literally mean? A nega can be a wound. It can also be to touch, right? Which is the same idea. If somebody wounds you, then your shleimut is ruptured by a intrusion of, let's say, call it unwelcome touch. A nega could be an unwelcome touch, a violation of your wholeness, of the integrity of your person. And the exact opposite of that is oneg. What is oneg literally? When we speak like, for example, oneg Shabbos, what does that literally mean? That the person feels very, very good and comfortable in their person. So it's the polar opposite of a nega. A nega means that somebody intruded and harmed me. Somebody's intrusive and harmful. Whereas oneg means somebody's actually giving me joy. All right? Now think about this in terms of people who you interact with. You don't want to be a nega, you want to be an oneg. You want to be a pleasure to talk to. Some people are a pleasure to be around, right? And some people, all you hear from them is, kanega nirali babayit. I've got so many problems. This problem and that problem and this problem. And they come to you with their problems and they're looking for a listening ear, which is not terrible. But the atmosphere of it may be that you're being joined into the problem as opposed to helping to heal it. So I'm giving you the brief overview and we'll go to details. So who is that individual that can transform or flip oneg into nega, a nega into oneg? Is the Kohen. That's their job. But they have to be able to identify a nega as tameh or tahor. In other words, the degree of severity of it. How severe is it? What happens when the nega is more than skin deep? Let's put it that way. What does the Kohen have to do? If it's amok mi'or b'saro, if it's amok, the pasuk tells us, then he sends the person into a quarantine, right? Why does a person need to be in a quarantine? Because the nega has taken over their personhood. It's not that they have a problem. A person can have a problem, fine. But when a person is a problem, that's the difference. That's why I say more than skin deep. When a person is so consumed with whatever the nega is, that it has overtaken their sense of being. Now, I don't know if you have chumashim here, but I'm going to show you something truly remarkable. The 7 negayim seem to be going in a particular order from top down. What I mean is less serious nega to more serious nega. And I'm going to show you how. So if you look at the, it's Perik Yud Gimel, Pasuk Aleph. Shem speaks to El Moshe ve'el Aaron. Notice that this section is Aaron was included. Why was Aaron included in this communication about the 7 different parshiot of Nagan? Why did Aaron have to be included? Because he's the solution. So Moshe is telling him, you're here to solve a problem. I'm including Aaron at the very beginning. Vayidaber Adonai al Moshe ve'el Aaron lemor. Adam kiyeh ve'or bisaro se'es oso pachas o baheres. 3 different unique types. Where was this? Vahaya ba'or bisaro leneged saras. What do you do? V'hu ve'el kohen o el acha mibanav hakohanim. You take him in to the doctor, right? To the spiritual doctor, to Rofei Nefesh. Who are we talking about here? Who has the problem? Give me the name of the person that has the problem. No, what's the name of the person that has the problem? No, he's got a name in the pasuk. What did the pasuk say? I'm reading it to you. Adam ki yeh be'or bisaro se'es o sapachas o baheres. The person is a mensch, right? Adam. There are a number of words that in the Tanakh, in the Torah, and in the language of Chazal are used to describe a person. Can you name me some words that are another word for a human being? Ish. Go ahead. Ish. Enosh. What else? Gever, correct. But there's one that's the lowest one of all. Kates, Kol, fill in the blank. Baal lefanai. The end of all flesh. The lowest form of a human being is either what we call nefesh or basar. In other words, human. Human and maybe humanoid. What I mean to say is you can see people who are 2-legged animals. They have so corrupted their tselem Elokim and they've done so many things that are out of character to what an Adam is supposed to be. We say, what's the most important thing? To know Shas or to be a mensch, right? To be a mensch. To be an Adam. Adam is the highest level. Adam stands for what? Aleph, Daled, Mem. Adam, Ani Hashem, right? But also Adam, David, Mashiach. They represents man's full actualization of potential, which we'll get to in a second. We'll talk about David HaMelech. Because we're in the Sfira Sa'omer period, which takes us all the way from whom? From Avram Avinu, the Midah of Chesed, the first week of the Sfira, all the way down till Malchut, which is embodied by David HaMelech. So, when we speak about Adam, Adam means man in his highest representation. And who is that person? David Melech Yisrael and Melech HaMashiach. We're going to get to a very, very interesting explanation about why it's Adam and not Moshe and not others. Because if you think about it, the whole Sfira period takes you from the various Midos all the way down to David HaMelech, but he's the end. David is associated with which Yom Tov? Which is what? Matan Torah. What does David have to do with Matan Torah? What does David have to do with Matan Torah? Yeah, so why does that coincide with the holiday of the giving of Torah? Very nice. I could maybe make Moshe or somebody else. Is Moshe better person to focus on? It represents the purpose that the Torah was given for. The Torah preceded creation 2,000 years. Why is there a Torah? So that it was given to, it was supposed to be for who? For Adam, Harishon. What does that mean? Its tachlis is Adam, David, Mashiach. If you want to know what the purpose of Torah is, to get us to the matzav of Malchut David Malka de Mashiach. Now what that means needs a little definition. And the Sfira Somer gives us a hint. Okay? But let's get back to that, okay? Let's just bookmark that for a second. Adam is the first level. Now, let's go to the second let's go to the second section, which is Perek Yud Gimel. All right? And Pasuk test. Listen carefully. Negat saras ki tiyeh be'adam b'huva kohen. Compare that pasuk to the first pasuk. I know it's hard to do with a chumash, not a chumash in front of you, but listen to the first pasuk again. Adam. This is the first word of the pasuk is Adam kiyeh be'or bisaro. That'll be on his skin, on the Adam's skin, a se'et, a sapachat, a beheaded. We're going to define what those three things are. But the next section, which is already the next type of nega, says as follows. What's the first word in the first word in the pasuk? Pasuk test. Nega is the first word, and then we say nega tsaras ki tiyeh be'adam. Do you understand that we've gone down a level? The first one, Parsha, speaks about a mensch. First and foremost, okay, so he's got a little issue. He's got a seis, a sapachas, a baharis. No. Okay, we're going to work on it. We're going to fix it. We're going to develop a response to it. The second person has already. The nega is before the Adam. There's more nega than there is Adam, or at least the first thing that's bolet about this person is their nega, and not their menschlichkeit, not their humanity. Let's go to the third parsha. You won't even believe this. Third parsha starts with the word. It's not pasuk. It goes all the way through to pasuk yudchet. The first word is Ubasar kiyeh bo be'oro shchin v'nirpa. There's no mention of an Adam, and there's no mention of a Kohen even. Okay? So, and then the fourth one, well, so far that was three, right? The fourth one, O basar kiyeh be'oro michbas eish. The person is referred to as a piece of basar. Descending order. So, if you don't attend to the nega, you go from the madrega of Adam, you descend all the way down through the various madregos, ish, because we do refer to ish later in the parsha as well. And then we then become a nega that's dominating an Adam, and then can go all the way, plummet all the way down to the level of basar if it goes untreated. Much like many serious diseases, right? If you don't treat it, it could proliferate and it could become chas v'shalom. It could metastasize. And by the way, the third, se'et, sapachat, and baheret. Baheret is defined as white spots all over. My perush, it has metastasized. Se'es and sapachas and baheres are in themselves three more serious problems. By the time you get to baheres, it is bahir, it is clear that we have a problem. Se'es is, by the Meforshim explained, and the Hasidic Svarim, like Nesiv Shalom, but even classic Meforshim like the Kli Yakar, Se'es means, what does it mean, laset, or lases? What's that? To carry. It means, it's something to pick up. Okay? What is therefore the character trait that would be represented by a se'es? A person who is high-minded, right? They think of what we would call has a problem with what? With gaiva. In fact, it's very, very interesting. I just learned just now a beautiful Gemara in Maseches Tainis, and the following story, which represents the foible of a se'es, a small foible, small. It just means that they're a little full of themselves. They think that they're pretty hot stuff. God's gift to mankind. I don't know, not that quite, but I'm a pretty great guy. I'm pretty, pretty chashuv vis-a-vis other people. The Gemara speaks about Rabbi Yeshua having a dialogue. This is Gemara, Tainus Daf Zayin. And it says there a little story between Rabbi Yeshua, who was not a particularly handsome man, and the emperor of Rome, the Caesar, and the Caesar's daughter. Now, in those days, the rabbis were constantly interacting with Rome, who were ruling Eretz Yisrael at the time, and the interactions, many of them are recorded in the Gemara. They were very impressed with the wisdom of the Jewish people. In fact, some say that there was a possibility that Rome would have adopted Judaism as their official religion. That is how powerful and influential the Jews were in taking the Roman pagan society and introducing them to a system of emunah, a monotheistic system, which they realized they had to replace their ridiculous system of gods and Zeus and pantheons. They had matured, the world had matured to a certain point where they realized this is very nice cultural things. Lahavdil, you put up a Christmas tree, but it doesn't mean I'm going to worship it. So then what do I worship? And the Roman world was going through a huge searching for some meaningful way of being. The Jews were 10% of the Roman Empire, by the way, which is a remarkable number. What?
Settled on Christianity.
They settled on Christianity. That was Hashem's will. And some say it was even the doing of Chachamim. Because the Christians had, unfortunately, wanted to bring their beliefs, which were incorrect, into normative Judaism. Right? And that's why you have halachos like, that you have to say a bracha in Shmona Esrei, what? Lamashinim, v'laminim. Who are the meanings? Some say that those are the Christians. And there's a Mishnah that says, Elkan sipur yagiu rachamecha. If somebody gets up and adds these words, Hashem's mercy extends even to a bird's nest. Mercy, mercy, mercy. What does it mean? Hashem is all tzedakah. Hashem is all tzedakah, all compassion, all kindness? No. That's a corruption of Jewish belief. We believe that we have a perfect balance. Hashem is the perfect balance of what? Tzedakah and mishpat. There's no such thing as all tzedakah. That's really the problem. When a person is all tzedakah, that's called a misguided chesed. That's why we say chesed le'umim chatas. That can be, you're so kind that you're allowing people to do things and turning away from it without confronting the evil. And I don't have to wax political here. Yeah, allow people to murder a little bit murder, a little bit this, a little bit stealing, a little bit why? Look the other way. We have to be charitable. Lahavdil, charitable, right? Isn't that the idea, the good Samaritan, Lahavdil? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam v'shakol b'ro. On the other hand,
my mother had a saying, we can shower for the good sky.
Yeah. That's what we say. Hatzileni na miyad ochi miyad Esav. If he's going to come to me all with tzedakah, oy voy. He's my brother, I got to worry. If he comes to me with all mishpat, Esav, either way, it's a problem. One could even suggest, and I try to stay away from it during the Shiurim, but the issue of Christianity versus Islam is in many senses that point. That there's take mishpat to the nth degree. You don't listen to what we say, we'll chop your head off. That's all. It's very simple. On the other hand, if it's all tzedakah, we're tolerating the greatest moral decay and corruption. That's also not good. David HaMelech represents the balance of tzedakah mishpat. Who was the first person, the first Jew demonstrated the ability to achieve the Torah's goal? Who was that? Avram Avinu. About who was said he was chosen to be his progeny, to be the Jewish people, because he knows he'll teach his children what? Both tzedakah or mishpat. It's pasuk and Bereshis, right? Balanced. balanced. That tzedakah is balanced by the mishpat, by the mishpat, and the mishpat is balanced by tzedakah. That is, and that is the secret of Adam, David, Mashiach. If you want to be an Adam, you cannot allow anything to be aggravated or what I call it, accentuated out of proportio. Everything is proportio. That's what they say in Israel. I have so many problems there. Proportio. Everything, yachasi, it's okay compared to what it was, compared to what it could be. No, a sense of perspective. Proportio is used here as a sense of perspective, but you have to have balance. So what happens when somebody has more seis? Their ego is starting to take off. They're still an Adam. They may be a great person. They may be doing every single mitzvah, but they think a little bit about themselves a little bit too much. And that's the case about Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Yeshua was talking to the emperor's daughter, and she said to him, "Here you're teaching my father, the emperor, all this wisdom of the Torah. I mean, the Romans thought that the Jews were the most brilliant people in the world. Gee, nothing's changed. The non-Jewish world thinks that Jews are really smart and have a lot to teach. Nothing's changed." So she said, "It's such beautiful wine. Wine is it's such beautiful wisdom, but in such an ugly container." Because after all, Rome was into aestheticism, beauty. And Rabbi Yeshua was a very unattractive looking man. And so she commented on that snidely. And then, so he approached her and he said, "You know what? When you fancy, very wealthy people here put away your fine wine, what do you store it in?"
In a container that is not nice looking.
Can't be silver, can't be gold.
Not gold.
Right. You got to put it in a glass bottle, which is essentially sand, right? Essentially, what is glass made out of? It's sand. It's the lowest thing. It's just a piece of earth. Or you can put it in pottery. They used to store it like in pottery. I mean, you could also put it in wood, which is not a fancy thing, right? But basically, the best way to store it is in glass or pottery, right? Better than wood. So wood will absorb some of it, whereas the glass will not. So he says to her, "Oh, you're so wealthy. Why don't you try an experiment? Put your finest wine in your gold and silver vessel." Not everybody has gold and silver vessels, but after all, you're the emperor and the daughter. You must have tons of gold and silver vessels. And she put her wine in there. She told her father, which is interesting. She told her father and says, "Can we put our wine in gold and silver? After all, we're so rich. Let's use our stuff, right? Why should we be like the common people who store their wine in a cheres?" So he says, "Yeah, great idea, great idea." They put the wine in. What happens to it? It spoils. It becomes takif. In the words means it becomes sharp, like vinegar. It's not sweet anymore. It's not sweet anymore. You can't even bear it. So she comes back, and the emperor says to her, like after a few days, he gets his wine, daily wine. "Bring me my wine." And he's laying back on his couch and he's drinking, his thing. And he spits it all out. He says, "What's going on over here? Who told you to do this?" He says, "It was Rabbi Yeshua." They summoned Rabbi Yeshua to the palace. And the emperor says to him, "Why did you tell my daughter to do this? You ruined all our wine." He says, "I was just answering her. I was explaining to her. I was giving her a lesson in wisdom." "Oh, that's what Yeshua is always here to do. Okay, we'll leave you alone." Because Yeshua's job was to come in and teach us wisdom. So he just taught us wisdom. What was the wisdom? Rashi says an amazing thing. Rashi says that she said to him then, "Okay, Rabbi Yeshua, you're right. If you put wine in gold and silver vessels, it ruins." He says, "But there are plenty of brilliant people that are also very handsome." Who was one of them that was very handsome? Who were the most handsome rabbis of all time? Well, Rabbi Yochanan, yes, who wrote the Talmud Yerushalmi. What's that? Well, Reish Lakish was his brother-in-law. Reish Lakish was attracted to Rabbi Yochanan because he had the beauty of a woman. The Gemara says he couldn't really. How about David HaMelech? David HaMelech was described in the pasuk as being very. But he was very attractive. Who was also very attractive and extremely wise? Yosef, tzaddik, the two personas of Mashiach. Very interesting. When it comes to Mashiach, beauty is not a stira to wisdom, because it's only a stira of wisdom if you lose your sense of humility. But once we have humility and harmony, then we can even accommodate beauty and still not lose our perspective of Kedusha and Anava. So it says Rashi, somebody who's very handsome is a little bit full of himself. And what doesn't he do? He won't review his learning enough. He'll say to himself, I got it, I'm smart, I got it. He learns the Gemara the first time, I got it, I know it all about peh. He's overconfident in his ability to understand and to retain the wisdom of the Torah correctly. But the one who's more humble says, I'm not sure I really understand this. Let me review it again. And the Gemara says, how many times are you supposed to review a piece of Gemara? 101 times. Eino doima, somebody who reviews it. So humility means, maybe I don't understand it. Mikol melamda hiskalti matamida yoser mikul. Maybe I have something to learn. No, I got nothing to learn. I know it all. I got this down. That's se'es. Okay? But still a mensch, but a shmektzach abissel of gaiva. Not a healthy thing. Okay, then comes sapachas. Se'es, sapachas, and baheres. So Kli Yakar says, sapachas, he brings a raya, that sapachas means something external to the self. And I'll bring you a proof. What's today an addendum to a contract? What do you call it? A sefach. A sefach, right? When you have a contract or important paper and you have an addendum, it's called a sefach. That's modern Hebrew. It's something that's not intrinsic.
A codicil.
Excuse me?
Like a codicil?
I'm sorry.
Like a codicil?
Codicil.
A codicil.
Oh, a codicil. Yeah, it's like if you put a book and then you have a book and you have an appendix. So what's an appendix? Something that's attached to the book, but it's really not the book. It's explaining the book, but it's extraneous to the book. So both the Ohr HaChaim HaKadosh and the Kli Yakar comment on this unusual word. It goes into the Mishnayos and the Goyim, which go into great detail. They says that clearly the sapachat does not look like the seis. It's something that has a different appearance. And what it is, according to the Kli Yakar, represents the desire for external things. Now let's understand what this means. What would you rather have? When Shlomo Melech, the wise man, was asked from Hashem, I'll give you anything you want. What did Shlomo ask for? Wisdom. Okay. Is wisdom extraneous? Is it a sefach? Or is it intrinsic to the person? If you're a billionaire, is your wealth intrinsic or extrinsic? Although today we don't know that. Today we've assumed that there's no boundary between a person and their possessions. They are defined by their possessions. You hear? That's the problem. They are their possessions. They become money. When people relate to them, they say, who am I relating to here? I'm relating to a billionaire. Why am I interested in being in their company? Which is not illegitimate. They can get things done. They become Krovei Malchus. They have people of influence. People who have great wealth have great influence. That's the way it is. Reb Nachman said that a person who's very wealthy, Rabbi, who was Mechabed Ashirim, Rabbi used to give honor to people who are very wealthy. Why? You're Koveya. You really are. So Rabbi used to honor the wealthy. Why? What does it mean that they're wise? Does it mean that they're tzaddikim? Does it mean that they're good? He says, yes, on some level it is intrinsic, because their neshama is a very high neshama. And that's why it attracts wealth and attracts people around them. So they have a capacity. Wealth does have an intrinsic element to it. But if the point is the wealth, then it becomes extrinsic. You understand? But if you're like Rebbe, who refused to have any personal benefit from his wealth, so why did he put out a table that was as fancy as any table in the Roman Empire? Because they have to give kavod to the Jewish people. If they see the Jewish people are a bunch of schleppers, right, and eating off plastic plates, and and not taking a shower, okay, walking around in broken down clothing, the goyim look at that and say, ugh. But if you're wearing royal garments and your table is set and you have fine manners and on top of that you have great wisdom to offer and character, okay, they'll listen. L'havdil of havdolos. You saw even by the Nazis who personified haughtiness, by the way. One of the things of the Nazis that they were extremely, well, they said that they were the super race, right? They said everybody's, How were people saved from the Nazis? One of the ways, which was at the very end of the war, as you might be familiar with the story of Hungarian Jewry, there was a hero from a guy who had it right. His name was Raoul Wallenberg. I did some research about him years ago. Fascinating man. He came from a very wealthy home. He was the elite from Sweden. Hallelujah, they should have one person like that in all of Sweden today. One. But he gave his life literally to go into the trenches with battle Eichmann, person for person. Well, what did he do? He had the following chap. He said, Germans are impressed by expensive things. He hired a printer to produce very official, important-looking documents. And on them, it said, this was like a, a visa or a temporary citizenship or something, that anybody holding this paper was considered a citizen of the Kingdom of Sweden. Well, you believe it that the Nazis, who didn't hesitate to kill anybody who came their way, man, woman, or child, or anything in between, when they saw these documents, they backed off. A Jew that held these documents was respected by the Nazis, and they left them alone because they were afraid of the offending the Malchus Sweden, which was, of course, the whole thing was just made up. They say Wallenberg used to climb onto the trains that were heading out from Hungary to Auschwitz, and they did get most of the Jews. But he saved 100,000 Jews by giving out these, and they would climb onto the trains and hand them to the people inside the trains. Because gaiva, right? That's what they'll respect. So if you use it in a wise way like Rabbi, then actually you can save lives, influence people for the good, stop murder, stop bloodshed, move people in the direction of Avodat Hashem. If you use it for selfish reasons, you become the sapachat. So that's level 2. The second level is sapachat. You become more concerned about the externals than the internals. But you're still an Adam. You still could be a very good person, a very righteous person. But somehow the ta'ava for wealth and honor has seeped in. Remember we said, nega kiyeh be'adam. That's going to be like the next parsha. We're on our way down that direction. Now, the third one, as we mentioned, was baheret, which according to Rashi means white dots all over the place, which means that those two traits have metastasized. And then we're moving down to Madrega. So that's how we look at the... now, the Klei Yakar goes a step further. Let me take you a step further here, okay? So far, everybody with me? So far, so